Okay, perfect. All right, so like I said, what we're going to go over first is just the After Effects layout. I'm going to introduce you to it so you can be familiarized with it, okay? So like I said earlier, you can move these around, the windows, but just for the sake of this training, we're going to keep it simple. So we're just going to reset that by clicking Window, Workspace, and we're just going to use the standard, and we're going to reset it. Workspace, Reset Standard. So you can see what I'm seeing here. All right, so the tools panel right here is similar to Photoshop. So you have your selection tool, hand tool, you have your mask tool, you have your text tool, similar to Photoshop. And this window right here that I highlighted is your project panel. This is where you actually see your footage, your compositions, and your assets. All right, and this window right here, just the bottom left corner, is actually your layers panel. This is where you're going to see all your layers later on. This one right here on your right, the very bottom, is going to be your timeline panel, and I'm going to show you what the timeline panel is all about later. This empty window here in the middle of the screen, this is going to be your composition window. This is where you're actually going to see your footage and your assets and your animations and whatnot. And the last window to your right is just all the other windows that you want in there that you can customize. Right now for the standard, you have your preview and your effects presets. Okay, so those are just the windows and panels. Now we're going to go ahead and start our to create our composition. Now composition is similar to how Adobe Premiere deals with as far as sequences. It's pretty much the same thing, but they just call it differently. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to composition to create a new composition or new sequence. Create a new composition. You can change the name of it if you would like. Now, you will always want to match your composition settings with your footage. So let's just say that I shot this footage at 1280 by 720p at 2997 frames per second. So I'm going to use this here, and it will vary on the camera you're using, but let's just say I'm using this camera here. So I'm just going to rename it to training. The background color actually doesn't matter because it will not render it out if you change the color here. This background is just for visual, really. It doesn't render out the color here. So I just usually leave it black. Okay, and I press OK. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, perfect. So now that we have our composition open and created, you'll see that it looks like there's checkered pattern on it. It's because it's telling you that it's actually transparent. So anything you put on here is going to be transparent if you render it right out of After Effects. So when we created this composition, we created a sequence, kind of like in Premiere. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try and import something, a footage or any layers or Photoshop, into this composition. So what we're going to do is just double click this project window, left click, and I'm just going to use the sample videos that Windows has, which is the wildlife. And now we can actually inspect the wildlife video settings. It looks like it was shot at 1280 at 720, which is the same as our composition, and it's also shot in 2997 frames per second, so that's perfect. I can actually just drag and drop that to my composition so we can see it in our composition window here. So now that I dropped it down to our timeline, you can now scrub through that footage in After Effects. Now, there's something weird happens sometimes when you import footage in After Effects. If you're working with interlaced video, which I believe some stations do. So if your footage looks like this in After Effects, I'm going to show it to you. If it looks like this in After Effects, that means that that camera they used shoots interlaced footage. And for you to actually not see those lines, you actually have to tell After Effects to do something. So if your footage looks weird when you import it, that means that the camera was shot in interlace instead of progressive. So what you're going to do is go back to After Effects, import that footage, the interlaced footage, and you're going to tell After Effects to actually interpolate that right, or interpret it right, sorry. So let's say this is the interlaced footage. You're going to right click it, click interpret, and you click main. And you should see this box here. Let me go ahead and hide this. So if you're working with interlace, you can tell After Effects to do what the interlaced on it, so you don't see those ugly lines or weird things on your footage. If you know who shot it, you can ask him, hey, was it upper field first interlaced, or was it lower field first interlaced? But if you don't know who shot it, you can just guess which one. You can click on upper field first. And since this footage is not interlaced, it's not going to do anything, but it should look like this after you do that option. And if not, you can try the other one, which is lower field first, and click OK. Now that should fix it. That should deinterlace your footage. So let's go ahead and go back to off, because this movie was shot progressive. Okay, so like I said, this is your timeline window, and you can move frame by frame here by pressing Control and right arrow key. And you can see that this is actually moving here, and this is your current time. We're moving frame by frame. You can do that, and you can do it left as well. So that's how you can scrub through your timeline in After Effects. Okay, so does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, perfect.
I'll try and give you my phone.
All right. So now that we have this footage here, we're actually going to go ahead and just add a new layer to it, because everything is layer based in After Effects. So we're going to go ahead and create a new solid by clicking Layer, New, Solid, and let's just make it grayish. You can move these around. I'm going to make the size of that solid the same size as my composition, so it fits. Click on that, press OK. And now you're going to see that the gray solid is now in our composition window. Okay, so now I'm going to go over some of the transform properties of these layers. If you untwirl a layer in your composition, your timeline here, by clicking this arrow, I'm going to make this bigger so you can see, you can start to see its transform properties, and you click it one more time. You're going to see its anchor point position, scale, rotation, and its opacity. The anchor point is this thing right here. It's really where the solid will rotate, or where it will scale from, and I will show you exactly what I mean. If I scale this now, you're going to see that it's scaling from that middle. I'm going to turn the wildlife movie for now by clicking this I button. When I scale this down, you'll see that the center, or the anchor point, is in the middle. Okay? And if I rotate it, it's going to rotate from that middle as well. So that's the anchor point. I'm going to show you how to change that anchor point later. But basically, that's the position, is the position of the actual solid in your timeline or your composition window. Your scale is how big it is. And this chain link right here will constrain your proportions or your aspect ratio. So if I untick this, it's going to skew it. Which, if it's an image, I'll show you on the wildlife one so you can see it. I'm going to move down, transform. I'm going to untick the chain link. This is going to screw up the aspect ratio. So for the most part, you want to click that, you want to constrain that aspect ratio so it scales properly. So let's go ahead and hide this for now. All right, so rotation, I showed you. You just pretty much rotate it. And the opacity, this probably going to use this a lot. The opacity is how visible that layer is. So if it's at 100 and you want to make it disappear, you just change that 100% to 0 here. All right. So let's go ahead and reset this. And let's just scale it down. Now, each transform property of a layer is, what do you call this? Keyframable. And what I mean by that is, let's say that we want to scale this solid or layer from smaller to bigger within 1 second. So what we're going to do is actually click the little time watch here right beside the scale, and that's going to create a keyframe. This is the keyframe, this little diamond looking thing here. So that means that from this time on, I'm going to, let's say, smaller. We want to make it like 60, something like that. And at 1 second, we're going to move forward 1 second. And we actually want to animate it to go to its regular size to 100%. So we're going to type 100 here. So now you'll see another keyframe. After Effects created another keyframe. So now if you see it, you just animated the scale of this layer. And like I said, all of the transform properties are keyframeable. So if you also want to rotate it, you can create a keyframe there. And by 1 second, what if you want to rotate it like 90 degrees? That would rotate it as well. And same thing with opacity. You can make it disappear. Let's say 100, it's going to be there at 0. But at 1 second, we're going to make it disappear. I don't want to see it anymore. And there it is. So all of these are really keyframeable. And now I would like to also mention this timeline here is based on your composition settings. So as you can see, we have 1 second, 2 second, up to 10 seconds. That's because our composition is set to 10 seconds. You can change that if you want a longer composition or sequence by just right-clicking it, composition settings, and you can actually change it to the duration here. Let's say I want it shorter, only 5-second animation. Delete that, 00, type 05, press OK, and that's going to shrink it to only 5 seconds. All right, this little bar here that I'm dragging left and right, this is actually your render time. Basically, if you have it all the way out to 5 seconds, when you render your animation in After Effects, it's going to render all 5 seconds. But if you only want to render, let's say, 3 seconds of it, you can drag it there and then just render those 3 seconds. You can control this by moving it around, or you can use a shortcut B and then N to cut that section. So go ahead and reset that. All right. So in this composition window here, I have my setting at quarter because I'm obviously screen sharing and I would like for you guys to get a good quality out of it. But if you're working on the real thing, you will want to change this to full because you want to see the full resolution of your footage. See, it started to slow down already. So I'm going to go ahead and just change that to quarter for now since I'm sharing the screen to everyone. Okay, so now that I have some type of an animation here, I know it's nothing great, but what if I want to see this? I want to play it back. Now, I can choose to press spacebar and play it back. But what if you have an actual footage that takes a lot more than just a solid? See how it gets a little choppier? This green line here shows you how much your computer's RAM has cached it. So that means the green ones are good. I can play that real time. And then it's going to start to slow down again. So this green mark means that you can preview that full time, and you can see that on the top right corner here. The frames per second is actually 26. this is not real time. But if we go to the ones that are green already, that are cached, okay, you'll see that that's actually playing real time. So when you press spacebar when you're trying to play a footage and you're like, why is it so slow? Well, it's because your computer hasn't cached the whole thing in, so it's not going to give you a real-time thing. So what you actually need to do is go to the top right corner and you're actually going to RAM preview it, and that's going to just have your computer preview it for you, and then you can play it back real time. So if I click this, well, I already did that, so let me reset it real quick so you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to remove all the cache, and all of that green line goes away. I'm going to click on RAM Preview, and it's just going to RAM Preview it for me. And there you go. It's giving me a real-time playback now. It depends on your computer how fast it is, but yeah, that's how you can get a real-time playback out of After Effects, by RAM previewing it. All right, let's see. So the next thing we're going to go over is Motion Sketch. I think Motion Sketch is pretty cool, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this for now, and I'm going to delete this gray solid for now, and I'm going to re-add it so I don't have all those animations. All right, so if you have a solid layer in your composition here, in your timeline, and you want to do a motion sketch to it, and it's simple animation, we're going to go to Window, and we're going to add the motion sketch. All right, what motion sketch is going to do is going to follow my mouse cursor, and it's going to make an animation out of it, and I'm going to show it to you. So I'm going to click my solid, I'm going to start capture, and I'm just going to draw a line. And it will automatically follow that animation. I'm going to go RAM preview it so I can play it real time. Right? It's really cool. Not really. But so that's one way that you can animate, and you can also have this layer follow the path that it's going. So if it's like a car or a text or something like that. So what you can do is you click your solid, click on layer, transform, and you're going to click auto orient along path, and that should follow it. I know it's not that smooth. It's because the smoothing, if you can see in the bottom right corner, I only left it at 1. If you want your animation to be a little bit smoother, you'll have to turn that up just a little bit. And if you untwirl this layer here, you're going to see all the keyframes that After Effects created for you, which is the position, because it's moving along that path. All right. Okay. Now, a lot of people ask, why do we need After Effects? We can do all of this in Premiere. Well, After Effects has this thing called motion blur. This is one of the reasons why people use After Effects for graphics, because they have this thing called motion blur. And I'm going to show you what motion blur is. So what I'm going to do is just delete this solid. I'm going to create a new text by just going on my text tool. And if you left click and hold, you can actually see more tools within that. So I'm going to click on text. I'm going to click on my composition window, and I'm just going to click text. Oh, let me turn this on so I can actually see a black background. You can toggle this on and off, but pretty much it's just a black background. So I have a text here, and let's say we want to animate it coming from the left side, and it's just going to fly into the right, right? We're going to transform it. We're going to keyframe its position by going down the layers. Click the time. We're going to create a keyframe there, and we're going to go to 2 seconds, and in 2 seconds we actually want to have it flying right. So I'm going to create another keyframe there by clicking this diamond here, and you're going to see I just created a keyframe there. Now you're saying it's not moving. Well, obviously it's not moving because we haven't moved it in the first keyframe. So we're going to go back to the first keyframe in a timeline, and then we're going to change its position. Oop, we're going to make it go left. Drag it. And now if you scrub through your timeline, wait, sorry, I'm going to have to go back here. There, that's good. Wait. Hang on, I'm sorry. Let me position keyframe. Okay. 10 seconds. Add another keyframe. Make this move. There it is. Okay. And you can see it's animating because it has these little dots here. So if I scrub through it, you can see that it's actually flying in from the left, going to the right. Now motion blur. I'm going to try and turn my quality up so you actually see it. If I play this now, you can actually see the text is just, I don't know, it looks kind of boring because it doesn't have motion blur in it. So to activate motion blur, we're actually going to go to the layer or the text. We're going to go to this motion blur simulate shutter duration. We're going to click on that box, and we're going to click the global layer for motion blur as well. And you can already see that it blurred it out. And I'm going to turn it on and off without motion blur, with motion blur, and I'm going to play it out, okay? I'm going to RAM preview it. I click in RAM preview, and you can see that the text just looks a little bit better, and I'm going to have it turned off as well and show you. Turn it off. Now there are many applications for motion blur, and this is just like a really small example. Now to do this in Premiere, you would have to animate like effects and things, but here it's just a simple click of a button. So let's see, motion blur. All right, so I'm going to do more motion blurs and text animations later on, but this is just a basic. So we're going to go ahead and move to anchor points and pan behind tool. Like I told you earlier, you can move the anchor point of a layer. So I'm going to drag and drop this solid that we created and reset that, Control Z. We're going to try and move this anchor point because we want to rotate it, not in the middle. We want to rotate it somewhere else. So what we're going to do is click on the solid, and if you go to, let's see, if you click on this pan behind anchor point tool, press Y, you can now move that anchor point. So let's say we want to scale it from here instead of the middle. If you scale it now, you'll see that the anchor point is coming from there. And you want to rotate it from there as well. Now the anchor point is going to come from there as well. It's not in the middle anymore. So you can move that anchor point around if you need it for, you know, a certain animation. But middle is obviously the standard for it. Like always, you can just reset the transform properties by clicking the reset button. All right, so After Effects is not an NLE, so it's really not smart to cut footage in After Effects, but I will teach you how to do it anyway because you might need to do it sometime. So we're going to go over some of the layer options you can do. You can do trim, move, stack, and split. So by trimming the actual footage, you can just drag this, Control Z real quick. Let me zoom out by clicking this zoom out in time. Now you can see it's exceeding our boundaries. It's because the wildlife movie is actually longer than our composition. So we have to change our composition settings again by going to our composition here, right click, composition settings, and we'll match it with our movie, which is 30 seconds. So composition settings, 30. And there you go. Now you can see your whole movie. So, like I said, you can trim your footage in After Effects by just dragging that. Dragging this. You can trim that. You can also, let's see here. You can also use a shortcut by pressing Alt and then the bracket. You can do that as well. And let's see, we can move it as well. We can move the footage by clicking our select tool here. We can move it around. So say we have another footage and then you kind of want it right there, you can move these around. Let's see, and then the last thing is stack. You can obviously duplicate this layer and stack them on top of each other by clicking that, edit, duplicate, or Control D. And now you have the same footage right on top of each other. You can also try and split this layer if you want by going to the layer, choose wherever you want it to split, click on edit, split layer, and it's going to automatically split it for you. So now you have two. Let's say you want this footage to regular, and then after this right here you want to add effects. That's how you would split that. Now the layer, now I'm going to kind of talk about how After Effects deals with layerings. It's similar to Photoshop, but if you're not familiar with Photoshop, the easiest way to explain it is actually compare it to cheeseburger. So let's go ahead and create multiple solids, and I'll show you what I mean. We'll create a new solid by clicking Layer, New, Solid. Let's get a white one. Make composition size. So create another one. Let's make this one grayish. Okay. Let's make another one. Let's make this one red. So the way After Effects deals with layer is whatever is on top first will get rendered, and it works from top to bottom. So let's say this top layer is the top of the bun of the cheeseburger, so we'll rename it by clicking the layer itself. Oh, sorry. Press enter. We're going to rename it to top bun. The middle one is going to be the patty, and the white one is going to be the bottom. So if we unhide the top one, we will see the patty. If you eat the top bun, you'll see the patty. If you eat the patty, you'll see the bottom. And that's how After Effects renders it. So let's say you want to animate this to disappear. We're going to create a keyframe on its opacity. So basically you want the top layer to disappear at a certain time to show the patty layer. So we can do that by creating keyframes. We're going to go back to the beginning, click on this. We're going to have it to show at 100, and then we want it to disappear at 2 seconds to show the bottom layer or the patty. Let's go ahead and close that to 0, and now you'll see that it's going to change colors. So that's how the layering works. So whenever you're doing animations or graphics, make sure that whatever graphic you want to be seen first, you want to make sure you put that all the way to the top, because if you hide that, let's say you have a text and you put it in the wrong format, you're not going to see that text. It's going to disappear because the top layer will always show first. And I'm going to create well, I already have a solid. I'm going to drag and drop it into composition settings. I'm just going to create a rotating solid for now. So I'm going to go to transform. I'm going to animate its rotation. I'm going to go to 2 seconds. And I'm going to rotate it once by just rotating it like that. 180. Okay, so now if you play it, it's going to rotate all the way. And I'm going to scale it down just a little bit. All right. So now we have this layer that rotates to 2 seconds, right? But what if you want to loop this layer to just keep rotating, right? What we're going to do is we're going to use an expression. What we're going to do is we're going to alt-click this time watch here, alt-click, left-click, and it's going to open this little text box here. Now, all we're going to do is delete whatever is in it. In rotation, we're going to tell it to loop. So we're going to type loop out, open parentheses, close parentheses, and just click away. And now if you press the RAM preview, that should loop it until your sequence is all done. Now, like I said earlier, it'll be better if you add a little bit of motion blur in it. You can click on this solid, click on the motion blur, and click on the motion blur settings, global. You always want to do that, because if not, then it's not going to work. And RAM preview it. Now you're going to see a little bit of motion blur there. It's hard to see because I'm screen sharing it, but you'll be able to tell difference with or without. Turn it off. Yeah.
Okay, so for the loop, what did you get on the keyframe for it to come up with that option?
Okay, so for the loop option, you can type expressions to any transform property. So for now, I wanted to loop out rotation. So let me go ahead and delete the keyframes for now, so you can see it. Yeah, sure. Give me an error. It's cool. I'm going to Alt left click the rotation property, and then the text box should come up on your timeline.
Alt and regular click.
Yeah, Alt and regular click.
Number?
The actual rotation time watch. Right.
Like your toast.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, and do you see the text box now?
I do.
Yep, and this is when you type out your expression, which is loop out, and then click on, ooh, I messed that up, loop out. And then click away, and that's going to tell After Effects to actually loop that expression. It didn't work because I didn't set the animation that I wanted to do. So here, I'll show you again. So rotation, I'm going to put a keyframe in 1 second. In 2 seconds, I want it to rotate 180. So I'm going to rotate it 180 again. So now we have a full rotation from 1 second to 2 seconds. And now we're going to loop that out. Tell After Effects, hey, I'm too lazy to keyframe it, just loop it for me. So what we're going to do, Alt left click to add an expression. You can remove this here by deleting it, and you type LOOP OUT. Open parentheses, close parentheses, and you just click out. So now when you RAM preview, that should loop forever. Now this is like a request that I received, so I wanted to make sure I taught it. But expression is a little bit advanced, but I just wanted you guys to see that it's there. Now this loop out here I didn't memorize. You can actually see more expressions by just going here. And there's a lot of expressions here that you can mess with, which is really cool. So yeah, that's how you loop footage in After Effects, so you don't have to keyframe the rotation over and over and over again. All right, so since we only have a couple of minutes left, I'm gonna give you pretty much like a quick overview of how you can render whatever you're making out of After Effects. I can do in-depth training later on for render settings, but for now I want to be able to let you know how you can actually save your footage so you can actually see it. So the way to save movies out, or how to render out from After Effects, is very simple. You just make sure that you have the length selected correctly. So let's say I only want to do 4 seconds. I only want to render this 4 second, right? So I'll make sure that's selected. I'll click on that. I'll click on my current composition, just make sure it's selected, which it is. Click on composition, and you get a pre-render. All right. Like I said, I can do an in-depth training on this, but for now, we're going to leave it as just defaults. We're going to go to Output module. We're going to choose our format on what movie we want to save it to. I believe you all use H.264, so I'm going to go to QuickTime. I'm going to go to Format Options. Change the animation to H.264. And then you can change the quality of your video. And you can't see it anymore because it's small, but once you do that, you can just leave these for now and press OK. Audio output. If you have audio in After Effects that you want to render out to, you can do that. So you can choose your bit right here, 16-bit or 12-bit, stereo or mono. If you want to go in depth, click on Format Options. And for H.264, I know it's usually AAC, so I'll just choose that. Like I said, you might have other options, but just showing you how to do it. Press OK. All right, everything is good. RGB, it's OK. And then the last thing you want to edit is actually where you want to save this file to. So you can go to Desktop, Training, QuickTime, Save, and then you just render it out. Does anyone have any questions about that part? I know it's really quick, but I just wanted to be able to show you some basic things, but be able to let you save your work and look at it or upload it later instead of waiting. All right, nobody has any questions? Sure.
Before we went to create a cloud, we wanted to do like really fancy text with like make your text shatter or do like really great motion.
Right.
You used to be able to go into your bridge and open up all these great effects you can put in After Effects for your text.
Right.
And since we gone to Creative Cloud, we don't have that anymore.
Okay, so, all right, let's see.
I'm just wondering, are we ever going to be able to get that back?
Sure. So let's see if I can find what you're talking about. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to open up a new text. All right. All right, so After Effects has a lot of built-in presets, which I can show you where they're all at now.
Yeah, that would be great because now I can't find that folder.
Sure, yeah, no problem. I'll do that. So let's just say, I'm going to scale this up so you can see it a little bit more. Okay. And if you go here in the right side of it and you click on Effects and Presets, you can make it bigger. You can actually type any presets you want here. So let's say we want this text to animate like a typewriter. We can actually make it animate in like a typewriter by just clicking and dropping it on the text. And then we do a RAM preview. And I believe Shatter is in here too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I liked it in Bridge is because it showed you the animation.
Right.
You had an idea of what you wanted, but you weren't 100% sure.
Hmm.
It showed you exactly how that effect works because the way some of them are labeled, you're not 100% sure what exactly is that.
Right. CC.
That's why I liked it in Bridge because then I could just look through and be like, oh, I like that more than I like that one. I'm going to use that effect.
Right. So it actually shows you the thumbnail of what it's going to look like.
Yeah, exactly. Because you might have an idea of what you wanted to do.
Right.
You might find one you like, but you might find something that's even better that you like even more.
Right. I can see if they still have that, but for now, you can just look through the text animation, which there's a lot of them. There's a lot of transitions here, but I'm not sure because I've never used Adobe Bridge before. That's kind of interesting. So it actually shows you the thumbnail of the actual effect. I'll definitely look into that.
We used to do that before we went to Creative Cloud.
Yeah.
I just happened upon it on accident.
Right. And was that connected to After Effects? That option?
Yeah. So it's like an extra folder on our computer system.
Okay.
CS6. And like I said, I just happened on it on accident. And it was like, you want to do this, and this. And it had like 4 different options for like fists and all that.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, I'll definitely look into it. I know they changed it a lot, but if that's easier, yes. I'm not sure why they would remove that feature, but if they did, I'll find out if we can find it somewhere. But yeah, that's a good question.
I now know I can still do it.
Oh, yes, you still can do it by just going the effects and presets. You might be actually able to find those effects here, but it's not going to show you the picture. Like, you would probably have to drag and drop it, like the typewriter.
Trial and error.
Right, exactly, and it's just animate in. But yeah, there's actually a lot of presets here that After Effects comes with, which is pretty good. But yeah,
I really like those effects with the lettering. It makes it a lot easier.
right, and I'm actually planning on teaching some more kind of in-depth text animations, because there's just tons of them. You can't fit it all in an hour. So it depends. If people would actually want more After Effects training, then they'll have to talk to Mr. Vadnais and see if he would like to host some more. But today it was just a basic introduction, really, so we can get you started and you won't be too afraid to open up After Effects, because there's a lot of great things here. We can actually integrate this with Adobe Premiere as well in the future if you guys are interested in learning how to do that. But today it was just...
A really good class to teach with After Effects is how you can steady your video.
Right.
Because it works a lot better studying your video in After Effects than using Premiere.
Right, steadying meaning stabilizing?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That's that's definitely...
That would be a really great class.
Oh, okay. Right. That's definitely doable, and the After Effects is the stabilizing, which is, and Adobe CC is actually much better than before. So that's something that we can talk about as well. But I was actually trying to build everyone up from the beginning, and then we'll get into some of the advanced techniques later as well if you guys are interested, or if everyone's interested. But definitely keep some training in mind that you would like to learn, and just let us know, and we'll get some more of this going if you all are interested. But
I have a quick question on
Sure.
the whole text effect that you put on there.
sure.
So I applied the same animation for typewriting, and I'm curious, how can you adjust the speed at which that effect is placed?
Sure. So basically, even though it's a preset, After Effects can still let you customize it a little bit. So if you actually untwirl the text layer, and you click on, I'm going to hide the transform so it doesn't confuse you. Click on text, and you actually click on animator, and then keep going down. And this is when the in-depth kind of text training will come about, because there's a lot of things here. So are you talking about how fast it's going?
Yeah, no, that answers my question. Just looking at that.
Okay, so yes, so basically if you wanted to animate faster, you would just move the end keyframe and get it closer, and that's going to animate it much faster.
Perfect.
Like that.
Sweet, thank you.
No problem. And one thing that I want to stress out, you can actually ease in your keyframe so it doesn't look too robotic. You can actually click on the keyframe, right click it. You can click on Keyframe Assistant, and you can easy ease, easy in or out, whichever you would like the best. Let's go with easy in for this. Easy ease in. And it's just gonna control how the motion will come in. It's not as fast. It's better to actually show it if the text is moving. So I'll show you that again. So I'm gonna just do a quick animation for the position. I'm gonna create a keyframe here. I'm gonna go to 2 seconds, just real quick. And I'm going to have it come from up there. So it's going to go, well, let's reverse it then. I can move these keyframes around. So it's going to come from the top and actually go to the bottom. So I'm going to have it like this. It's kind of slow, so let's speed it up by just moving the keyframe. Like that. So you kind of see how the animation is just flat. So what we can do is we can do easy ease and easy in out of that. So if you click on the end keyframe, right click, Keyframe Assistant, easy ease in, and then we'll do the beginning keyframe and we'll do easy ease out. You'll see a much smoother, see how it kind of slows down and then stops instead of just stopping right away. Like that. And I'll take it out so you can see it. that's just another way when you animate you can look into, instead of just having it float in the same speed, same velocity. You can do easy ease and easy out. And I'll add a motion blur here, make it look more interesting. RAM preview. You really can't see it.